Because you are a disgusting fat body, Private Pile! What the fuck is that? What is that?
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to River West Radio. I'm your host, Cassius King. It's Wednesday night, and it appears that it is a full moon. Just to let you guys know, I am the producer of this show, and the things that you will hear over the next half hour or so, maybe a little more, represent the views and opinions of this show and the people making them. All the opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program. In last week's show, we concluded the chapter Father Grappi's Civil Rights Awakening from The Selma of the North by Patrick D. Jones. In subsequent weeks, we will continue readings from that book, but not tonight, as there is a limited time. A segment that we haven't been able to get to in a couple of weeks is Cook's Corner, and tonight we will read a recipe from the Moosewood Cookbook by Molly Katzen. Tonight's recipe will be asparagus mushroom sauce. This recipe will make enough for 4 to 6 platefuls of pasta, also good on rice or fish. You will need 3/4 pound chopped mushrooms, 1.5 cups water, milk, approximately a half to a 3/4 cup, 1 cup chopped onion, 1 clove crushed garlic or more, 2 cups thinly diagonally cut asparagus, 4 tablespoons butter, 4 tablespoons flour, a half teaspoon tarragon, salt and pepper to taste. Tamari is optional. And an additional optional topping is grated Parmesan. First direction: salt the mushrooms lightly and steam them 10 minutes in the water. Drain and press out all excess liquid. Measure the liquid and add enough milk to make 3 cups. Cook the asparagus in a steamer 10 minutes or so until it is the consistency that you like. Melt the butter, add onions and garlic. When the onions become soft, whisk in the flour. Cook whisking over low heat for 5 minutes. Add liquid from the first step. Cook, stirring frequently until it thickens, on low heat 8 to 10 minutes. Add mushrooms and asparagus. Season to taste. And that was a recipe from the Moosewood Cookbook by Molly Katzen. Lao Tzu said, "Those who serve life adapt to changes as they act. Changes arise from the times. Those who know the times do not behave in fixed ways. Therefore, I say, ways can be guides, but not fixed paths. Names can be designated, but not fixed labels. Writings are produced by words, and words come from knowledge. Intellectuals do not know. They do not constitute a fixed way. Terms that can be designated do not make books to be treasured. The learned come to an impasse again and again. This is not as good as keeping centered. Put an end to scholasticism, and there will be no worries. Put an end to sagacity, abandon knowledge, and the people will benefit 100-fold. Human beings are tranquil by birth. This is the celestial nature. Sensing things, they act. This is natural desire. When things come to them, they respond. This is the action of knowledge. When knowledge and things interact, like and dislikes arise. When likes and dislikes are formed, knowledge goes to externals and cannot be returned to the self. So the celestial design disappears. Therefore, sages do not replace the celestial by the human. Outwardly, they evolve along with things, yet inwardly, they do not lose their true state. So those who realize the way return to clear tranquility. Those who find out about things end up without contrivance. They nurture the intelligence by calmness, unify the spirit by abstraction, and take to the gate of nothingness. Those who follow heaven travel with the way. Those who follow humans mix with the vulgar. Therefore, sages do not let business disturb the world, and do not let desires confuse feelings. They do what is appropriate without scheming. They are trusted without speaking. They succeed without thinking about it, achieve without contriving to do so. Therefore, when they are above, the people do not take it gravely, and when they are in front, others do not attack them. The whole world resorts to them. The treacherous fear them, because they do not contend with anyone. No one dares to contend with them. Continuing from our reading of Manufacturing Consent, The Political Economy of the Mass Media by Edward S. Herman and Noam Chomsky, reading from the chapter, A Propaganda Model. The power of advertisers over television programming stems from the simple fact that they buy and pay for the programs. They are the patrons who provide the media subsidy. As such, the media compete for their patronage, developing specialized staff to solicit advertisers and necessarily having to explain how their programs serve advertisers' needs. The choices of these patrons greatly affect the welfare of the media, and the patrons become what William Evan calls normative reference organizations, whose requirements and demands the media must accommodate if they are to succeed. For a television network, an audience gain or loss of 1 percentage point in the Nielsen ratings translates into a change in advertising revenue of from 80 to 100 million a year, with some variation depending on measures of audience quality. The stakes in audience size and affluence are thus extremely large, and in a market system there is a strong tendency for such considerations to affect policy profoundly. This is partly a matter of institutional pressure to focus on the bottom line, partly a matter of the continuous interaction of the media organization with patrons who supply the revenue dollars. As Grant Tinker, then head of NBC TV, observed, television is an advertising-supported medium, and to the extent that support falls out, programming will change. Working class and radical media also suffer from the political discrimination of advertisers. Political discrimination is instructed into advertising allocations by the stress on people with money to buy. But many firms will always refuse to patronize ideological enemies and those whom they perceive as damaging their interests. And cases of overt discrimination add to the force of the voting system, weighted by income. Public television station WNET lost its corporate funding from Gulf Western in 1985 after the station showed the documentary Hungry for Profit, which contains material critical of multinational corporate activities in the Third World. even before the program was shown, in anticipation of negative corporate reaction, station officials, quote unquote, did all we could to get the program sanitized. According to one station source, the chief executive of Gulf Western complained to the station that the program was virulently anti-business, if not anti-American, and that the station's carrying the program was not the behavior of a friend of the corporation. The London Economist says that most people believe that WNET would not make the same mistake again. In addition to discrimination against unfriendly media institutions, advertisers also chose selectively among programs on the basis of their own principles, with rare exceptions. These are culturally and politically conservative. Large corporate advertisers on television will rarely sponsor programs that engage in serious criticisms of corporate activities, such as the problem of environmental degradation, the workings of the military-industrial complex, or corporate support of and benefits from third world tyrannies. Eric Barnow recounts the history of a proposed documentary series on environmental problems by NBC at a time of great interest in these issues. Barnow wrote that although at that time a great many large companies were spending money on commercials and other publicity regarding environmental problems, the documentary series failed for want of sponsors. The problem was one of excessive objectivity in the series, which included suggestions of corporate or systemic failure, whereas the corporate message was one of reassurance. Television networks learn over time that such programs will not sell and would have to be carried at a financial sacrifice, and that, in addition, they may offend powerful advertisers. With the rise in the price of advertising spots, the foregone revenue increases, and with increasing market pressure for financial performance and the diminishing constraints from regulation, an advertising-based media system will gradually increase advertising time and marginalize or eliminate altogether programming that has significant public affairs content. Advertisers will want more generally to avoid programs with serious complexities and disturbing controversies that interfere with the buying mood. They seek programs that will lightly entertain and thus fit in with the spirit of the primary purpose of program purchases. The dissemination of a selling message. Thus, over time, instead of programs like the selling of the Pentagon, it is a natural evolution of a market seeking sponsor dollars to offer programs such as A Bird's Eye View of Scotland, Barry Goldwater's Arizona, an essay on hotels, and Mr. Rooney Goes to Dinner, a CBS program on how Americans eat when they dine out, where they go and why. These are exceptional cases of companies willing to sponsor serious programs, sometimes a result of recent embarrassment that call for a public relations offset. But even in these cases, the companies will usually not want to sponsor close examination of sensitive and divisive issues. They prefer programs on Greek antiquities, the ballet, and items of cultural and national history and nostalgia. Barnow points out an interesting contrast. Commercial television drama deals almost wholly with the here and now as processed via advertising budgets. But on public television, culture has come to mean other cultures. American civilization, here and now, is excluded from consideration. Television stations and networks are also concerned to maintain audience flow levels, i.e., to keep people watching from program to program in order to sustain advertising ratings and revenue. Airing program interludes for documentary culture matter that cause station switching is costly, and over a time, a free commercial system will tend to excise it. Such documentary culture critical materials will be driven out of secondary media vehicles as well as these companies strive to qualify for advertiser interest, although there will always be some cultural political programming trying to come into being or surviving on the periphery of the mainstream media. Chapter 1.3 Sourcing Mass Media News, the Third Filter. The mass media are drawn into a symbiotic relationship with powerful sources of information by economic necessity and reciprocity of interest. The media need a steady, reliable flow of the raw material of news. They have daily news demands and imperative news schedules that they must meet. They cannot afford to have reporters and cameras at all places where important stories may break. Economics dictates that they concentrate their resources where significant news often occurs, where important rumors and leaks abound, and where regular press conferences are held. The White House, the Pentagon, and the State Department in Washington, D.C. are central nodes of such news activity. On a local basis, City Hall and the Police Department are the subject of regular news beats for reporters. Business corporations and trade groups are also regular and credible purveyors of stories deemed newsworthy. These bureaucracies turn out a large volume of material that meets the demands of news organizations for reliable, scheduled flows. Mark Fishman calls the principle of bureaucratic affinity. Only other bureaucracies can satisfy the input needs of a new bureaucracy. Government and corporate sources also have the great merit of being recognizable and credible by their status and prestige. This is important to the mass media, as Fishman notes. News workers are predisposed to treat bureaucratic accounts as factual because news personnel participate in upholding a normative order of authorized knowers in the society. Reporters operate with the attitude that officials ought to know what it is their job to know. In particular, a news worker will recognize an official's claim to knowledge not merely as a claim, but as a credible, competent piece of knowledge. This amounts to a moral division of labor. Officials have to give the facts, reporters will give them. Another reason for heavy weight given to official sources is that the mass media claim to be objective dispensers of the news, partly to maintain an image of objectivity, also to protect themselves from criticisms or bias and the threat of libel suits. They need material that can be portrayed as presumptively accurate. This is also part of the policy, taking information from sources that can be presumed credible reduces investigative expense, whereas material from sources that are not primary investigative or that will elicit criticism or threat requires a careful check and cost of criticism. The magnitude of public information corporate that constitutes primary news sources is vast and ensures special access to these. As the public information sources that involves many thousands of employees. Since closed down, the U.S. Air Force revealed that its public information included 140 newspapers, 690,000 This excludes U.S. In 1971, an Armed Forces Journal survey revealed that the Pentagon was publishing a total of 371 magazines at an annual cost of some $57 million. An operation 16 times larger than the nation's biggest publisher. In an update on the Air Force Journal indicated that the Pentagon was publishing 1,000 periodicals. Put this in perspective, the main scope of public information
righteous man. That's why they fight I so hard. No matter what I do, I just can't get